through a third country in previous months. I mean, it would take literally a whole day to get next door. And what we're seeing now is the ease of which this trip will be able to make also just so important.
I can tell them.
And you land here, Robin, and there are murals of Che Guevara. There are people dropping off their family in an international airport in horse and buggy. I think Americans will wonder if they've traveled back in time, which, of course, is somewhat enchanting for people who don't live here. For Cubans, they want to use this surge in tourism to make their economy. The economy here is in terrible shape, so this is a vital lifeline for the economy. Never did Cuba's revolutionaries thought they would depend so heavily on the United States, but that's essentially why they've changed their policies. They need this money so badly, but there is a trickle-down effect going on where you see Americans staying with Cubans, eating at the restaurants, which are the best restaurants in Cuba, and so increasingly, while a lot of the money does go to the government, it is trickling down to regular Cubans, and that's having a huge impact on their lives.
A huge impact, another sign of change, of thawing relations. Patrick Altman, as we watch this JetBlue flight.
Well, the interesting thing about Santa Clara is they couldn't announce the Havana flights. There's a limited space at the Havana airport. It's not a modern airport, and the Cuban government said that we can only fit 20 flights a day from the U.S., which seems optimistic. There were 60 airlines, Robin, that wanted those flights. So there's still a fight being played out. We think it'll be ending in the next few days. We could get you an announcement today, perhaps about Havana flights, but it was easier to say a smaller city like Santa Clara to do the first flight there. I think Fort Lauderdale, certainly that's where JetBlue's hub is, and they are a major Caribbean a company that really has flights all throughout the Caribbean. I know American would have liked it, but I think perhaps having a flight on American Airlines from Miami would have brought up some of the politics a little bit too much. This is still very, very sensitive. We are told that this first flight, when it lands here, will not be shown live to Cubans on TV here. The government, while they need this, they're also still very sensitive, and they say that we're welcoming Americans, but of course there are many other tourists that come here, and there really will be no special treatment for Americans. But of course, we expect this island to become flooded with Americans in the years to come, Robin.
And we will be going live when this plane touches down where you are in Santa Clara, so we'll check in with you in about an hour. Patrick Altman, thanks so much. Another trip in just a few hours. Donald Trump lands in Mexico. And Carol takes a look at this particular trip.
We are also going to secure our border and stop drugs from pouring in.
Donald Trump surprising the political world by announcing that he is heading south of the border today to meet with Mexico's president just hours before his highly anticipated immigration speech, the visit coming after more than a year of criticizing Mexico on the campaign trail.
When Mexico sends its people, they're not sending their best. They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists, and some, I assume, are good people.
Tweeting, I've accepted the invitation of President Enrique Peña Nieto of Mexico and look very much forward to meeting him. A surprising invitation, giving Peña Nieto's previous comments about Trump, rejecting the Republican nominee's promise he'll make the Mexican government pay for a 1,000-mile border wall.
A great, great wall on our southern border, and I will have Mexico pay for that wall. Mark my words.
Under no circumstances would Mexico pay for that wall.
There is no way that Mexico can pay a wall like that.
The Mexican president likening the billionaire's rhetoric to Adolf Hitler and Benito.
Presidenta o presidente.
During a North American summit with President Obama in July, Peña Nieto proposed a frank, open dialogue with whomever is elected.
Tomorrow night in Arizona, big speech
for Mr. Trump. But will these events help Trump move the needle with Hispanic voters? Well, let's bring in our Rafael Roma. He's our senior Latin American affairs editor, and CNN Español's Gustavo Valdez. He's in Arizona, where Trump will make that speech a little bit later. To you, Gustavo, first. I mean, this is a bold move for both politicians.
It is indeed, and almost it makes you wonder whether Donald Trump is calling President Peña Nieto. And quite frankly, he might feel like he has nothing to lose. He is polling very low with Latinos in the United States. So maybe this can help him gain some attention makes those who don't like him turn their heads and pay a little attention to what he has to say. And maybe this could be an opening to continue a conversation down the road. This could be just saying, hey, I'm here talking to Latinos. I'm not just talking about Latinos like others have done, putting Hillary Clinton under the microscope to see what she's doing next. And also perhaps the one that has most to lose is President Peña Nieto, who is very unpopular in his country. Bringing this highly criticized politician could create a problem for him depending on what is discussed. This is supposed to be a private meeting, so maybe there won't be cameras there to capture what really happens. And at the end, we won't really know what is said, with both people coming out and say whatever they feel is going to help them the most.
I think you make a good point there. I mean, both of these politicians can spin this any way they want if it's a private meeting. Rafael Romo, to you. And Gustavo has just mentioned it. I mean, the person with the most to lose here is the Mexican president. And his predecessor, Vicente Fox, just came on CNN and said, if he is perceived as soft, he's not going to be just perceived as soft. He's going to be perceived as a traitor here. I mean, what kind of a political risk is this?
Well, there's a lot of indignation about the invitation in Mexico to begin with. And frankly, people scratching their heads. Why would President Enrique Peña Nieto invite Donald Trump right now to Mexico when he really has absolutely nothing to gain and much to lose? And the president's response to this, and he said it on Twitter, says that he wanted to open a dialogue and start a conversation with whomever is the next president of Mexico. But then there's again indignation from the Mexican right, indignation from the Mexican left. People are completely outraged and nobody can understand. And you said it yourself. Former President Vicente Fox said on our air that he would like to apologize to all of his fellow Mexicans because this is an insult to the entire country to have Donald Trump, the man who has called Mexicans rapists and criminals to their faces. Now he is a guest to the Mexican president. Just unbelievable for many Mexicans.
So Gustavo, to you, I mean, looking ahead to this speech, and of course the key issue here is the Latino vote. Will anything, do you think, change the minds of Latino voters after this visit or after what he might say in this speech?
I think the biggest thing is that he gets their attention. They're going to be listening, watching to see what happens. And let me tell you, I've been on the campaign trail since last year. Last year in Iowa at the state fair, I met Latinos who don't like what Donald Trump says on immigration, for instance, but they like their terrorism, anti-terrorism position. I went to New Hampshire where I talked to business owners who are not very happy with Obamacare and they want to hear another option. I was in Colorado where many Latinos are disappointed President Obama did not follow through on his promise to to pass an immigration reform that cost Democrats a Senate seat in Colorado. So what Donald Trump is doing right now, it's showing Latinos that the media is talking about them and not the Middle East and not Europe. This is his opportunity to say, I'm starting with Mexico, and if he continues and addresses the Puerto Rican debt crisis, if he talks about the crime in Central America, if he goes and talks about Venezuela, about Brazil, about Argentina, he might have an opening and show that unlike other candidates who, during the campaign trail, we've only heard about what are you going to do about terrorism? What are you going to do about ISIS? What is the role of NATO? This might provide him an opportunity to tell Latinos in the United States, I hear you, and I might be the one who can represent you in the White House.
Yeah, you make some excellent points there. Thanks to you both, Rafael Romo and Gustavo Valdez. Appreciate it. Thanks, guys. Well, Brazil's political future is being decided right now. Senators are making closing arguments on whether to remove their president, and they're set to cast a final vote in the coming hours. Our Shasta Darlington is in the capital, Brasilia, with the following, and is following this impeachment trial on Dilma Rousseff. I mean, we thought this might happen yesterday. Do you think it's likely to happen today? And if so, how soon?
Yes, definitely, Robin. This is D-Day for Dilma Rousseff. They are just beginning to sit down in the Senate now and begin those closing arguments, as you mentioned. We're expecting two senators from each side, both the defense and the prosecution, to make some arguments, final statements by the president of the Supreme Court. So we could see the vote starting in about an hour, hour and a half. And as we've talked about before, Robin, it is widely expected that there will be 2/3 of senators voting in favor of impeachment. So this is very likely just another hour or two that Dilma Rousseff will be president. She's watching everything unfold back at the presidential residence. She has former President Luis Inácio Lula da Silva by her side. We expect that when this is all over, she will come out and give a brief statement to reporters gathered there. At that point, she will no longer be president. Again, we expect her vice president, Michel Temer, who took over as interim president back in May when she was suspended. We expect there will be a brief swearing in for him this afternoon because he's in a hurry. He actually wants to take off for the G20 in China, but he wants to take off as the Brazilian president. So on the one hand, you have the man that Dilma Rousseff accuses of orchestrating her ouster, really in a hurry to get this all over with, and Rousseff's supporters trying to drag it all out. This, as we know, has dragged on for months now, but this is definitely the final day, Robin, when everything will play out.
Okay, I'm keeping an eye on all of it. Shasta Darlington there in Brasilia. Thanks so much. Well, Britain's Prime Minister called her cabinet together to begin planning strategy for leaving the European Union. And one thing appears for certain, there is no turning back. Well, CNN's London correspondent Max Foster joins me now. So, Theresa May says Brexit means Brexit.
Yeah, but what does that mean, Robin? This is where we're getting down to the nitty-gritty, really, because, yes, everyone accepts in government, in her government, in the country, pretty much, you saw that in the referendum, that Britain should leave the European Union. But on what terms does it leave? And that's where the splits are developing through the country and within her own cabinet. So she's brought them together. It's effectively an away day at her country residence. They've got other issues on the agenda as well, but they're talking about how Britain should leave the European Union. She does accept that there will be no referendum. She said that ahead of the meeting, and she also said that Britain would not stay in the EU by the back door. But within her cabinet, there are those who campaign for Britain to remain in the European Union, most notably Philip Hammond, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, and there are those like Boris Johnson who wanted Britain to leave. And the split there now is an acceptance that Britain should leave, but should they leave this European single market, which is so crucial to the British economy? And Philip Hammond, it's said, definitely wants to stay in. Those on the other side of the spectrum saying that there is no option but to leave.